A desperate white lie, Olivia. Patterson wiped flour-covered hands on her apron and squinted at the kitchen clock. Almost midnight, and she still had 3 custom cakes to finish before morning. Her back ached from standing all day at Sweet Nothing's bakery, where she'd been employed for nearly 3 years since graduating from culinary school. "Liv, you're killing yourself," said Tessa, poking her head into the kitchen. As the bakery's owner and Olivia's closest friend, Tessa was the only person who truly understood Olivia's situation. "The blind date is tomorrow. You need sleep." "Can't," Olivia replied, carefully piping delicate sugar flowers onto a wedding cake. "Mrs. Donovan will have my head if these aren't perfect. Besides, I've already rescheduled twice." This Benedict guy sounds promising. Ethan says he's smart, creative, and, most importantly, not a jerk. Olivia sighed. Ethan, Tessa's fiancé, had been trying to set her up for months. At 28, with crushing student debt and a dream of opening her own dessert boutique, someday, dating seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. "Fine, but don't expect me to be charming. I'll be running on espresso and desperation." The next evening, Olivia stood outside Café Laurent, a trendy bistro she could never afford on her baker's salary. She'd splurged on a simple blue dress and spent precious time arranging her auburn curls into something presentable. Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate, Zoe. "Good luck. Remember, you're amazing and he'd be lucky to have you." Olivia smiled weakly. If only she believed that herself. Inside, she spotted a man sitting alone, checking his watch. Jackson Benedict was unexpectedly handsome, with warm brown eyes and a thoughtful expression. When he smiled at her, Olivia felt her nervousness multiply tenfold. "Olivia, I'm Jackson." His handshake was firm, confident. "Sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into her seat. "Work ran long." "No problem. Ethan mentioned you're passionate about your career." The waiter appeared with wine menus, and Jackson ordered with the ease of someone accustomed to fine dining. Olivia felt increasingly out of place. "So," Jackson said, "what do you do?" The question hung in the air. Olivia hesitated, thinking about her flour-dusted apron and the calluses on her hands from kneading dough. The judgmental looks she sometimes received when explaining her job to people with real careers. The crushing disappointment in her parents' voices when she'd chosen culinary school over law. "I'm a restaurant consultant," she heard herself say. "I specialize in menu development and concept creation." The lie emerged fully formed, born from countless daydreams and the career she wished she had. Olivia immediately wanted to take it back, but Jackson's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "That's fascinating. What kind of restaurants do you work with?" One lie demanded another. "Mostly independent places looking to differentiate themselves. I believe every restaurant should tell a unique story through its food." To her surprise, the conversation flowed easily, as Olivia drew on her culinary knowledge to elaborate on her fictional career. Jackson asked thoughtful questions about flavor profiles and dining trends that she could actually answer. "You have such interesting perspectives," he said, looking at her with unexpected admiration. "Most consultants I've met just recycle whatever's trending." "Food should evoke emotion," Olivia replied, momentarily forgetting her deception as passion took over. "The best desserts create memories, not just satisfy a sweet tooth." Jackson smiled. "I couldn't agree more." By evening's end, Olivia had almost convinced herself of her own lie. When Jackson asked to see her again, she hesitated, knowing she should decline and end the charade. Instead, she said yes. Walking home under starlight, Olivia rationalized her decision. It was just one more date. Nothing would come of it. She'd gradually let things fizzle out before the lie grew too big. But as she unlocked her apartment door, Olivia couldn't ignore the spark she'd felt with Jackson, or the knot of guilt already forming in her stomach. Sugar-coated reality. 3 weeks and 6 dates later, Olivia's temporary deception had morphed into an elaborate fiction she struggled to maintain. She'd created a website for her non-existent consulting business, complete with testimonials from clients who were actually Tessa's restaurant owner friends. Her phone now contained a separate calendar for her consultation appointments, carefully scheduled around her actual shifts at Sweet Nothing's bakery. "This is getting ridiculous," Tessa said one morning as they prepared the day's first batch of croissants. "Just tell him the truth. Jackson seems like a decent guy." "That's exactly why I can't," Olivia replied, aggressively folding butter into dough. "Every time I think about coming clean, he mentions some high-profile restaurant opening or industry event. Yesterday, he talked about flying to Chicago to try a Michelin-starred tasting menu. Meanwhile, I'm excited when I can afford name brand cereal." What Olivia couldn't explain, even to Tessa, was how Jackson made her feel. With him, she became the confident, accomplished woman she'd always wanted to be. Their conversations about food innovation and business strategy pushed her to think beyond her daily grind of wedding cakes and cupcake orders. "He's taking me to dinner at Lumiere tonight," Olivia said, referring to the city's most exclusive restaurant. "A place where the waiters probably make more than I do." "Well, at least you'll eat well before your inevitable heartbreak," Tessa replied, only half joking. That evening at Lumiere, seated across from Jackson in a dress she'd splurged on with her meager savings, Olivia felt both exhilarated and fraudulent. The restaurant's renowned chef had prepared a special tasting menu featuring molecular gastronomy techniques that fascinated her culinary mind. "What do you think of the dessert concept?" Jackson asked as they shared a deconstructed Black Forest gâteau. "Too pretentious?" Olivia considered the presentation. "It's technically impressive, but it's missing soul. Great desserts should balance innovation with emotional connection. This feels like it's trying too hard." Jackson smiled, studying her, with those perceptive eyes that made her wonder if he could see through her charade. "You know what I like about you, Olivia. You don't just regurgitate trendy food opinions. You have real conviction about what matters." The compliment warmed her, even as guilt chilled her conscience. "Speaking of conviction, I've been vague about my own work," Jackson said, shifting the conversation. "I'm in business development for a hospitality group. We're launching a new concept next year, which is why I'm particularly interested in your perspective on restaurant trends." Olivia nodded, relieved the spotlight had moved away from her fabricated career. She'd noticed how Jackson deflected personal questions, offering only minimal details about his professional life. Perhaps he too had secrets. Over the following weeks, their relationship deepened beyond restaurant talk. They explored hidden corners of the city, debated books they'd both read, and shared childhood stories. Jackson listened intently when she spoke about her struggling single mother who'd worked double shifts to support Olivia's education, never judging her humble beginnings. Meanwhile, Olivia began experimenting with dessert concepts in her tiny apartment kitchen. She filled notebooks with ideas for innovative pastries that combined classic techniques with unexpected flavors. Sometimes she'd describe these creations to Jackson as projects for clients, and his enthusiastic feedback fueled her creativity. One rainy Sunday, after they'd spent the morning browsing farmers markets, Jackson invited her to his apartment for the first time. Olivia had assumed he lived in a nice place, but nothing prepared her for the stunning penthouse overlooking the city park. "You must be doing very well in business development," she remarked, trying to mask her shock as she took in the professional-grade kitchen and minimalist furniture that screamed money. Jackson shrugged. "I've been fortunate, but this is just a place to sleep. I'm more interested in building something meaningful." As they cooked dinner together in his impressive kitchen, Olivia felt the weight of her deception growing heavier. Jackson handed her expensive ingredients with casual ease, never suspecting she counted pennies for basic groceries. Yet when he kissed her amid the steam of simmering sauces, none of that seemed to matter. Later that night, curled against him on his sofa, Olivia made a decision. She would tell him the truth, after she'd proven her culinary talents were real, even if her consultant title wasn't. She would develop a signature dessert so extraordinary that perhaps, just perhaps, he'd see beyond her lie to the passionate chef underneath. What Olivia didn't know was that Jackson had secrets of his own, ones that would collide with hers sooner than she expected. The bitter truth. Olivia stood frozen in the doorway of La Maison, an upscale French bistro where she'd arranged to meet Tessa for lunch. A large promotional poster greeted customers, featuring a familiar face she'd never expected to see in this context. Jackson Benedict, identified as founder and CEO of Meridian Hospitality Group, announcing the restaurant's recent acquisition. "Ms. Patterson? Your table is ready," the hostess prompted, pulling Olivia from her shocked trance. She followed, mechanically mind-racing. Meridian was a hospitality empire with dozens of high-end restaurants across 3 continents. She'd read about them in culinary magazines, dreaming of someday creating desserts worthy of their establishments. And Jackson, her Jackson, was, apparently, their founder? Tessa arrived minutes later, immediately noticing Olivia's distress. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." Wordlessly, Olivia pointed to the poster. Tessa's eyes widened. "Holy pastry sheets," she whispered. "You're dating a hospitality mogul and didn't know it?" "He said he worked in business development," Olivia replied, voice hollow. "I never imagined—" "God, Tessa, I've been lying to the CEO of a restaurant group about being a restaurant consultant. This is beyond humiliating." "Maybe it's not as bad as you think," Tessa offered weakly. "He owns restaurants that employ world-class pastry chefs. Meanwhile, I'm frosting cupcakes for children's birthday parties." Their lunch arrived, but Olivia could barely eat. Everything made terrible sense now. Jackson's extensive food knowledge, his international connections, the way restaurant staff seemed to recognize him everywhere they went. He hadn't been forthcoming about his success, but at least he hadn't fabricated an entirely different career. That evening, Olivia canceled their dinner plans, claiming a client emergency. Instead, she sat on her fire escape, watching the sunset while contemplating her options. The obvious choice was to disappear from Jackson's life entirely, change her number, avoid their usual places, spare herself the humiliation of confession. But something inside her rebelled at this cowardly exit. Beyond her feelings for Jackson, she'd come to respect him too much for such dishonesty. He deserved the truth, even if it meant losing him. With trembling fingers, she texted, "Can we talk tomorrow? Something important? Your place?" His reply came quickly. "Of course. Everything okay?" "It will be," she answered, though she didn't believe it. The next day, Olivia arrived at Jackson's penthouse carrying a small pastry box, a peace offering of sorts, containing the experimental dessert she'd been perfecting. A delicate vanilla bean panna cotta with honey lavender infusion, topped with caramelized white chocolate crumble and edible flowers. She'd spent her last free hours creating something beautiful, a testament to her true passion before everything fell apart. Jackson greeted her with a kiss, but his expression grew concerned when he saw her serious face. "Before you say anything," Olivia began, setting down the dessert box, "there's something I need to tell you." She took a deep breath, hands clasped to stop their trembling. "I'm not a restaurant consultant. I never have been." Jackson's face remained carefully neutral as she continued. "I'm a pastry chef at Sweet Nothing's Bakery. It's a small place downtown. Nothing fancy. I work 60-hour weeks making wedding cakes and birthday treats." Words tumbled out faster now. "When we met, I felt so intimidated. You seemed so sophisticated, and I was afraid you'd dismiss me if you knew the truth. It was supposed to be just one date, but then..." "But then?" Jackson prompted quietly when she faltered. Then I started falling for you, Olivia admitted, eyes downcast. The lie kept growing. I kept thinking I'd tell you next time, but I was scared of losing this. She gestured between them. Yesterday I saw your poster at La Maison. You're not just in business development. You're Jackson Benedict of Meridian Hospitality. You own some of the finest restaurants in the world. Silence stretched between them. When Olivia finally dared look up, she was startled to find Jackson, smiling. Are you, laughing at me? She asked, confusion mixing with hurt. I'm not laughing at you, Olivia, he said gently. I'm just relieved. Relieved? Jackson moved to the kitchen and returned with 2 dessert plates and forks. He opened, her pastry box serving them both before explaining. I knew who you were from our first date, he admitted. I recognized you immediately from Sweet Nothings. They make my favorite almond croissants in the city. I stop by at least once a week. I've seen you working through the kitchen window many times. Olivia stared at him, processing this revelation. You knew all this time? I was going to say something that first night, but then you started talking about restaurant concepts with such passion and insight. I was fascinated by your perspective regardless of your actual job title. Why didn't you tell me you knew? Olivia asked, still disbelieving. Jackson took a bite of her panna cotta, his eyes closing briefly in appreciation. This is extraordinary, he murmured before continuing. I figured you had your reasons. I thought perhaps you'd tell me when you were ready. And honestly, he smiled ruefully. I wasn't completely forthcoming about my own position either. But that's different, Olivia protested. Downplaying success isn't the same as fabricating an entire career, isn't it? I deliberately let you believe I was a mid-level executive because I'm tired of people treating me differently when they learn who I am. We both wanted to be seen for ourselves, not our professional labels. Olivia absorbed his words, hardly daring to believe this conversation wasn't ending in disaster. So, you're not angry? How could I be angry with someone who creates desserts like this? Jackson gestured to the panna cotta. Olivia, your talent is genuine, even if your job title wasn't. That's what matters to me. Relief washed over her, but uncertainty lingered. Where does this leave us? Jackson reached across the table for her hand. That depends. Do you think you could forgive me for my omissions if I forgive yours? For the first time that day, Olivia smiled. I think that might be possible. A recipe for forgiveness. The weeks following Olivia's confession brought unexpected developments. Rather than drifting apart after their mutual revelations, she and Jackson found themselves growing closer, their relationship now grounded in authenticity, rather than pretense. One evening in late autumn, Jackson invited Olivia to dinner at an unmarked building in the city's warehouse district. When they arrived, she was surprised to find not a restaurant, but an industrial kitchen space, massive, gleaming, and completely empty, except for a single workstation prepared with professional equipment and premium ingredients. What is this place? Olivia asked, running her fingers along the polished steel countertops. A test kitchen, Jackson explained. Meridian uses it to develop new concepts before implementing them in our restaurants. He handed her a crisp, white chef's coat. I thought you might want to show me what you can really do without the constraints of Sweet Nothing's menu. Olivia held the coat reverently, noticing her name embroidered above the pocket. You want me to cook for you? Here? Consider it your first real consultation, he said with a gentle smile. I have a new project that could use your perspective. For the next 3 hours, Olivia lost herself in culinary creation, free from budget restrictions or customer expectations. She prepared a progression of desserts that told a story, beginning with a savory sweet amuse-bouche of goat cheese, panna cotta with fig compote, followed by a deconstructed apple tart tatin with brown butter ice cream, and culminating in a chocolate composition featuring 5 different textures and temperatures. Jackson watched, occasionally asking questions about her process, but mostly observing her in her element. When she finally presented her final creation, he tasted it thoughtfully. "This is what you were meant to do," he said finally. "Not making cookie platters or birthday cakes, as good as I'm sure those are." Olivia flushed with pleasure. "Thank you, but even talented chefs need jobs that pay the bills." "Speaking of jobs," Jackson said, his tone shifting to something more formal, "there's something I'd like to discuss with you." He led her to a small conference room adjacent to the kitchen, where architectural renderings covered the walls. Floor plans, interior design concepts, and location photographs depicted what appeared to be a boutique hotel. "This is the Artisan," Jackson explained. "Meridian's newest project. It's different from our other properties, smaller, more intimate, focused on craftsmanship in every detail. We're breaking ground next month, with plans to open next year." Olivia studied the renderings with interest. "It's beautiful. Very different from the corporate luxury aesthetic most high-end hotels embrace." "That's the idea. And that's why I wanted your opinion." Jackson pointed to a space on the main floor plan. "This area is designated for a signature dessert concept, not a traditional restaurant pastry program, but something unique. A dessert atelier, perhaps, where guests can watch artisanal creations being made to order." Understanding dawned slowly. "You're offering me a job." "I'm offering you an opportunity," Jackson corrected, "to create something that's entirely yours, with Meridian's resources behind you. The concept, menu, staffing, all your decision. You'd be the creative director of the space." Olivia's mind raced with possibilities, but caution tempered her excitement. "Jackson, I appreciate this more than I can say, but is this because of us? Because if things didn't work out between us personally—" "This isn't about our relationship," he interrupted firmly. "It's about your talent. What I saw tonight confirms what I've suspected since our first conversation about food. You have extraordinary vision, Olivia. Vision that's being wasted on sheet cakes and cookie platters. But I've never run a professional kitchen, let alone developed an entire concept from scratch. Everyone starts somewhere. Meridian has resources to support you. Training, mentorship, whatever you need. But the creative direction would be yours." Olivia paced the small room, mind swirling with equal parts excitement and fear. "People will think I got this because we're involved." "Some might," Jackson acknowledged. "Does that matter more than pursuing your passion?" "It matters that I earn this on merit, not because I'm sleeping with the boss." Jackson's expression softened. "Then don't accept my offer. Apply formally through our HR department. Submit a business proposal and sample menu. Compete against other candidates. If your concept is selected, you'll know it's because you earned it." Olivia stopped pacing, studying his face for any sign of manipulation or false promise. She found none. "You'd really let me go through the normal channels, even knowing what it would mean to me?" "Especially knowing what it would mean to you," Jackson replied. "Your pride and independence are part of why I—" He stopped abruptly. "Part of why you what?" Olivia prompted, heart suddenly racing. Jackson stepped closer, taking her flour-dusted hands in his. "Part of why I've fallen in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, more significant than any business proposition. "This isn't how I planned to tell you," he continued softly. "But yes, Olivia, I love you, not the consultant you pretended to be, not the pastry chef at Sweet Nothings, but you. Your passion, your creativity, your integrity even when facing difficult truths." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. After weeks of worrying their relationship couldn't survive her deception, his declaration seemed almost miraculous. "I love you too," she whispered, "despite my best efforts not to." Their kiss tasted of chocolate and possibility, sweeter for being grounded in truth rather than illusion. When they finally parted, Olivia had made her decision. "I'll submit a proposal through proper channels," she said firmly. "And when I get the position, it will be because my concept was the best." Jackson nodded, respect evident in his expression. "I wouldn't expect anything less. But," she added with newfound confidence, "you should know my concept will blow the competition away." Sweet success. 18 months later, Olivia stood in the center of Ambrosia, making final adjustments before the grand opening. The dessert atelier occupied a stunning space in the Artisan Hotel, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city garden and an open kitchen where guests could watch pastry artisans at work. The journey to this moment had been more challenging than she'd anticipated. After submitting her concept proposal, a progressive dessert experience combining theatrical presentation with boundary-pushing flavor combinations, she'd endured months of interviews, tastings, and revisions before the selection committee, notably absent Jackson, had unanimously chosen her concept above 16 other applicants. The subsequent year had been a whirlwind of culinary training, business education, and countless 16-hour days. She'd traveled to Paris, Tokyo, and Barcelona to study under master pastry chefs, returning with techniques and inspirations that refined her vision. Through it all, Jackson had remained supportive but scrupulously professional regarding her project, insisting on maintaining separation between their personal relationship and Olivia's professional development. "Chef Patterson, the staff is assembled for final briefing." Olivia turned to see Sophie, her newly hired assistant chef, gesturing toward the kitchen where 15 employees waited. These talented individuals, pastry chefs, chocolatiers, service staff, had chosen to join, her untested venture believing in her vision. "Tonight is about creating memories, not just serving desserts," Olivia told her team, surveying their attentive faces. "Each guest should leave with a story they're eager to share. You all know your stations and responsibilities. Trust your training, trust each other, and remember why we're here, to transform how people experience dessert." As her staff dispersed to complete preparations, Olivia felt a presence beside her. Jackson stood watching, handsome in his tailored suit, a proud smile playing at his lips. "Nervous?" he asked quietly. "Terrified," she admitted, "but ready." The reservation list is impressive. Food critics from 3 major publications, influencers, industry leaders, all coming to experience Olivia Patterson's vision. He took her hand discreetly. "A far cry from lying about being a consultant, wouldn't you say?" Olivia laughed softly. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that I'm here." "Believe it," Jackson said firmly. "You earned this, Olivia. Every bit of it." The opening night exceeded even Olivia's highest expectations. Guests marveled at the theatrical presentations. Desserts that changed colors as different components were added, edible bubbles filled with aromatic vapors, chocolate sculptures assembled tableside. But beyond the spectacle, they were captivated by the sophisticated flavor profiles that Olivia had spent months perfecting. Near midnight, as the final guests departed, Olivia found a moment of quiet in her office. A knock at the door revealed Jackson, holding a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "To Ambrosia's successful launch," he toasted after pouring. "The critics are already raving. Thomas Chen from the Culinary Standard called your signature dessert a revelation in textural harmony." Olivia sipped her champagne, savoring both the bubbles and the sweet taste of accomplishment. "It doesn't feel real yet." "There's something else we should celebrate," Jackson said, reaching into his pocket. He produced a small blue box that made Olivia's breath catch. "I've been waiting for the right moment. When you were established in your own right, standing on your own foundation." He opened the box to reveal a platinum ring set with a cushion-cut diamond, surrounded by smaller stones, in an artistic, asymmetrical design, unconventional, like their journey together. "Olivia Patterson," he said, voice uncharacteristically nervous. "You came into my life pretending to be someone you weren't, only to become more than either of us imagined possible. Will you marry me? Not as my employee or protege, but as my equal partner in life?" Tears blurred her vision as Olivia found herself speechless for perhaps the first time since meeting Jackson. Finally, she managed a single word. "Yes." Later, that night they stood on the balcony of Jackson's penthouse, their penthouse now, overlooking the glittering city. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you lied about being a consultant?" Jackson teased gently. "Never," Olivia admitted. "I was just trying to get through one dinner without feeling inadequate." "And now?" She considered the question, thinking of the journey from insecure baker to acclaimed pastry chef and entrepreneur. "Now I know that what matters isn't the title on your business card, but having the courage to pursue what you love and being honest about who you are with those who matter." Jackson wrapped his arms around her. "Even if the path includes a few white lies along the way?" Olivia smiled against his shoulder. "Sometimes the sweetest outcomes come from the most unexpected recipes." As they stood together contemplating their future, Olivia reflected on the strange alchemy that had transformed her desperate deception into the foundation for authentic success. She had wanted to be impressive on that first date, never imagining that simply being herself would ultimately prove far more powerful than any lie she could have invented.